Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have Mike Lowry, I believe it is. Kind of like Bad Boys.
It's not Mike Lowry at all.
Is it
I
not?
was just like, why is this? Why do you need my last name? And I could have just put EP. My
Okay.
stage name is Mike EP, but my last name is actually Lawfer. So
Lawfer. Okay, cool. So we have Mike Lawfer, or Mike EP is his stage name. And today we're going to talk about, obviously fighting the burnout from a different perspective. Mike is a musician as well as a podcaster. So he calls himself now a musician podcaster or podcast musician. Does a bit of both, loves it all. We were just talking about just before we started recording. So he's going to talk to us about that and how burnout has, been a thing in his life and how he uses what he does now to keep himself up and going. So Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a musician podcaster, as you so eloquently put. Before the pandemic, I was a musician. I worked full time as a musician. A lot of my money came from gigging and from writing music. My wife is my writing partner, as well as we do an acoustic duo together. But I also play keys. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, so that sort of opens up the door for me to sort of step into a lot of different roles. So I was able to sort of play in different roles around town. It makes me more valuable in a sense. I'm not the greatest at any one of them, but I can hold my own on all of them. So that helps when you're trying to market yourself as a musician. And I worked, and so that's been my life for the last 7 years or 6 years, since 2011. And there was like a distinct I'm sure we'll get into this. There's been several like huge burnout points in my life, and after one in particular that sort of kicked my ass, it was I discovered that I could do all these things, and that I could be a musician, and I could, be a touring musician, and I could be, sober, and I could be doing, I realized a lot about myself. So in the last 6 years, I've been able to sort of work as a musician, an artist, and a podcaster, all the way up until the pandemic. And then things sort of, well, as you know, everything sort of went belly up, and we, even people who thought they had the most solid job in the world found themselves not working, which is a very good lesson that the world should learn. I'm a musician. The entertainment industry went belly up all the way, and all of our gigs. 2020 was supposed to be a big year for us. We were touring, and we were filling our life's dream. In the midst of all this, we moved from Southern California to Ohio, where we currently are, and we sort of van lifed ourselves across. Me, my wife, and my son van lifed across the country, and ended up back in Toledo, where I'm originally from. So I've been sort of building this momentum in the last 3 years. Gigging and getting out there and finding my way as a podcaster and as a musician, especially breaking into a new scene. And so that's been the last 3 years until the pandemic. And as I was saying, there was we had plans for the year touring, and that all went away. And so in this sort of downtime, we have me and my wife both stream. We have two different channels. We both stream on Twitch, which you can see right here, twitch.tv/WeSpeakEnglishGood. And that's my website right there.
Yeah.
But so we found a whole new path, and it's been pretty amazing. So that's sort of a nutshell of the last few years working as a professional musician. Before that, in my 20s, I called myself a musician, but really I was that drunk guy messing up people's sets. They would hire me, and I'd show up wasted, and I'd end up messing up their set. So I pretended like I was a musician, like I that was my identity, but really I just sucked. And I drank, and I worked in jobs that I hated, and so everything sort of shifted after I got sober. But we'll get there.
We
So
will get
yeah,
there.
that's
We will get there. Wow, man, that's a story. Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to the COVID changing everything. I mean, it changed stuff for me. It really changed stuff for my wife. She was did overseas incentives and events. Um,
wow.
she literally traveled
Yeah,
for a living. She
yeah,
traveled around the country.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, I totally get that, and I've got friends that are musicians, dancers, all kinds, and yeah, it's just changed everything. So before we jump into like your experience with burnout, and getting into that specific one that you obviously you've you know kind of pushed towards a little bit, what's your definition of burnout, so we kind of know a starting ground on what you define as burnout?
For me, burnout is yeah, I watched a one of your episodes, and it was actually your latest episode with your friend who was a police officer,
Mm.
and she was awesome, by the way. That was a great
Yeah,
conversation,
Brooke's
and
pretty cool.
yeah, that was great, and she gave a great answer that kind of goes along with mine, where you have sort of this mental and physical exhaustion, but for me, it goes beyond that. It goes, I stopped sleeping regularly. I have all different kinds of hours, and very irritable. I'm very take things out on the people who love me kind of person. I just become depression, anxiety, heightened anxiety because I'm always anxious. Um, and for me, it's just literally just turning into a sad monster, and that's burnout, and that's how I know. It's not only is it this physical and mental exhaustion, but it's this just this pull on personality, this total flip where all of a sudden now you're something you hate the most.
Yeah.
and and I hate that part of myself, that I consider that the weakest part of myself, is that I sometimes succumb to my emotions, and I know that's a lot of people, of course, but I don't know. I don't appreciate it. I don't like it about myself, and that's the biggest thing I've tried to change in sense, like actively trying to be a better human being.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's burnout for me.
Cool, man. Yeah, I can relate to that one. Yeah, it's definitely that nasty, that Latin. I call it the little demon inside of you. He comes out. He just does
I
not.
hate it.
He just. I mean, my business is called Knocking Demon because he's always there. It's just a matter of
Mhm.
what you're due to kind of keep him from not at bay, but keep him from owning your life. So
Exactly.
tell us about this experience, this massive experience that you had with burnout.
So for me, it's something that built for about 30 years. Ever since I was like 7, I've been on some kind of drug. I was put on ridilin at a young age, and then I was medicated all the way through high school until I decided to just stop taking them, because I got to that point in my life where I was big enough that I could just say no, and no one's gonna shove a pill down my throat.
Yeah.
And so that medication, I don't know, maybe it helped me, maybe it didn't. It definitely made me uh, more susceptible to um, addiction, I think, because you sort of, when you put someone on a drug, and you make them dependent, your body becomes physically dependent on it, no matter what age you are. If you just keep taking a drug over and over again, like coffee, I guess the lightest example I could give someone is, if you drink a lot of coffee, and you skip, like maybe you missed Starbucks on the way to work, and by 11, 12 o'clock you got this crazy headache and you're tired and everything. So as a kid, I remember I would be drugged all year, and then there would be the summer would come and my parents would just stop giving me pills, and I'd just get off the medication. And so there was sort of always this push and pull of, literally, kicking drugs every summer as
Mhm.
a young person. And when you look back at it, I can see like that horrible effect that had on my mental state, because I just turned into a crazy person all summer. And at some point, my parents couldn't control what we were doing, me and my sister, because they worked all the fuck time. So we just ran amok. So from the age of 7 on, like through my teens, I started experimenting with harder drugs and marijuana. And then I got in my 20s and alcohol really took hold. And then through my 20s, I just sort of, that's when at 23, I moved from Ohio to San Diego, California, which I miss dearly. I love San Diego so much, and I miss California in general. And you're a Cali boy, right?
Yeah, Northern Cali. Yeah, way up
I love
north. I'm a bit different than Southern Cali, but yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. NorCal, SoCal are just completely different, completely different. But I love both ends. So you were like up north, like Eureka and stuff like that in
Yeah, so I was in Reading, so just
Reading. Yeah.
so
That
just
well,
south of the border.
that's a dump of a town, but that's okay. I don't like Reading, but it's
It's
fine.
very redneck. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Sorry everybody in Reading who's listening to this.
All my
It's
family
not.
and friends.
It's a I don't hate look, I don't like Central California. I only like the coast, and I like the nice parts of California like Yosemite and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like everything else could kind of live in the desert and
So what we do
burn
have in Reading is we've got Lake Shasta, so we're winning that.
Mount Shasta, exactly. Mount Shasta is such an incredible, just incredible place. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Mount Shasta. It's funny when we were on van life, me and my wife and my son pulled up into Mount Shasta, where you can kind of go and like there's a pull off area. It's like you can go like hike around the base when you first pull into town there. And we got out of the van, and immediately this car pulls up behind us, and we can't really see her, but she gets out and she just lights up a cigarette. And this is, California, like she's out in the wilderness, in the woods.
Yep.
And my wife hates cigarettes, and my wife is very vocal about it. And she's like, "You're not allowed to smoke in this area." And there's signs everywhere. It says no smoking. This is all tinder. It's all gonna burn.
Yep.
She gets mad and like flicks the cigarette. And I swear to God, like we're in a movie or something, she starts waddling away, and she is prego AF. Like she is fully, like she looks like 8 months pregnant. And me and my wife are like, what did we just, what just happened?
Sounds like that kind of area. So you're saying about you moved to San Diego.
Right. Well, I moved to San Diego in my 20s, and sort of that was my first step away from my mom's house and all of us. And we just went nuts. And we're from the Midwest, and it's California, and it was sunny, and the girls were like nothing, and we lived a block from the beach, and we just went wild, and I really indulged. And I got really into drinking heavily, and then I already brought like this opiate addiction from back east when I moved out there, and then I started getting really heavily into heroin, and I was using needles and all that fun stuff. And I met my wife, and she kind of helped me in a way, helped me want to get better.
Yeah.
And then, a few years later, I'm drinking. I stopped doing like hard drugs because my wife wouldn't have stood for that. But we were young and we were drinking.
Yeah.
It ended up turning it, and basically that long-winded thing. Basically, it got to a point where I mean, I wasn't able to really hold jobs. I wasn't able to, get into bands. I wasn't, and we had come home for Christmas, and I was fighting with my father the whole time. I mean, I was blacked out drunk the whole week. I remember riding home on the plane, like shaking, and I couldn't even eat a banana. It was awful. But my wife gave me this ultimatum while we were here. And she was like, "Look, it's either this or that, it's either me or the bottle." And I chose my wife, and I did it for her at first. And now it's completely for me and my family, like it was the best thing that ever happened. So I look at getting sober as hitting, this rock bottom, this burnout, as you'd call it. I don't know if that's traditionally, I think you're thinking, when you're saying burnout, I feel like you're talking about like just working too hard. But in my mind, I burnt out, I hit rock bottom. And after that, after all the fog had cleared, I was able to like start my life, like legitimately start my life at 30. And I was able to be in bands, and I was able to start a career in music, and I was actually able to do that. And I actually was able to start touring, and I was able to start accomplishing stuff. And and a lot of that was just on sobriety. So that was one of the first times like where, I had to stand back and examine what's going on. Plus getting sober at a time, like at that time, my life was insane too. I was my father was dying, and my wife had just gotten pregnant. I just turned 30. I realized my hair is falling out. Like it all just happened all in this like 2-month period. And all this time I had to be sober because I had stopped drinking. And thank God, I look back now and wonder if I would have kept drinking, what kind of terror I would have been because I was obviously using alcohol as a crutch to not face the reality of life and
Was
my
it
own.
what was it that you were running from?
Um, like I had a weird childhood. I grew up in a little town in Michigan and then moved to Ohio. My childhood was cool, but it was we were very unmonitored children. We no, we were allowed to do a lot of things on our own. So we never really learned discipline, and we never really learned what it meant. I mean, my parents were hardworking people, but that never was instilled in us. And so me and my sister, I feel like we both, and I'm not blaming my parents because they were just doing what they're doing. I was born in the 80s. My parents, there was no internet then. There was no, there were books, and my mom tried, my dad tried, they got me help. But I mean, I was a little asshole, and my sister was a little asshole, and we caused a lot of problems, so a lot of it comes from lack of discipline. There was some weird childhood abuse that happened too that I don't really want to go into, but that definitely contributes to things. And it's just, it definitely stems from childhood. It definitely stems from this place of being undisciplined. And I was a very obese child as well. I was like 325 pounds in high school.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, that, a fat kid who don't know how to process their emotions correctly, has no real like passions for anything. That's a petri dish for drug addiction and
Or any kind of
and
addiction.
mental health.
Well,
Yeah, any
for
kind
that,
of
for
addiction.
that,
Yeah.
for that, like you said before, the burnout is not necessarily just overworking. Burnout is,
Right.
emotionally, we can burn
Mm-hmm.
out so
Yeah,
easily because we don't deal with, like you just said, deal with the stuff from the past. So
exactly.
obviously, so you went through, you were going through all this stuff. Your wife gave you an ultimatum: choose me or choose the bottle.
Mm.
Um, I can relate to that. Mine was pretty much not so much choose me or choose happiness in a way, but it was which do you want? And
Mm.
I ended up choosing her as well. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know if I was going to. I didn't know what I wanted. But what was it that made you choose your wife? And then obviously, like you said, you ended up having all these different things. Your dad was sick, your hair was falling out, you were 30, you had like all these different things going on. What was it? What did you learn that kept you moving, kept you pushing?
Um, mm, wow. I don't know if I've ever really even thought of that, because there is this there's this thing in me that can be good and bad, where once I decide something, I'm just gonna go all in with it, and
Mm,
it can get ridiculous. But it's also a good thing. It's also a really good thing because I can apply it to, um, you know, I mean, music. You have to have patience. You have to put a lot of work into it. I once I get into something, I get into it,
yeah,
and that can go for alcohol or drugs, or it could go towards working hard, or towards learning, or towards, so like there's benefits to it, but you have to kind of control it. But the thing about it is that I chose my wife. I made this decision, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it, because if I do screw up, first of all, I have to start all over. And
mm,
plus, my
mm,
sister, she got sober as well. She was a massive alcoholic, and she went to AA. She did it. I would say she did it right, but everyone's path to sobriety. Well,
yeah,
the only reason why I say that is because AA offers support. I don't necessarily agree with everything AA has, but the beautiful thing about AA is that it's a support system. It's a
mm,
support network. It's people going through the same thing as you, that where you can reach out and talk to them, and they always have literature on like getting help. And that was the one thing I wish I would have did was, at least get counseling. I wish I would have gotten to therapy earlier. That's what I wish, So what really kept me driving and kept me sober was just the sheer fact that I decided to do it, and I didn't want to start over. And my sister, when I told my sister, I was like, I'm going to get sober. She's like, we'll see. And that pissed me off. It pissed me off. It
Gotcha.
pissed me off
Yeah.
because I'm like, no, I'm going to get sober. And she's like, okay. And I get it now. I get it. But then it was kind of hurtful. It was like, well, F you, I'll show you. So there was sort of this thing where I was like, this bitch ain't gonna tell me,
Yeah.
So I love my sister to death and we're very close. So, I respect her a lot. And plus I respect my wife a lot. And so it was really just that idea of that I made this decision. I'm just going to deal with it. I mean, as a person going through that, I was awful. I mean, because all of a sudden you cut off the alcohol, you cut off this source of like this terrible Band-Aid. It's just the worst Band-Aid you could ever think of. And then, you rip that bandage off and out comes, the arterial spray. It was just, anger and depression and anxiety and all the worst things about myself were amplified. And it was not, I was not easy to deal with. And I respect my wife very greatly for sticking through that and still sticking through it, because I'm still dealing with this bullshit. So
how do you deal with it? How do you work through it and stay on that path now?
well, it's been 7 years.
Yep.
and
Awesome.
and I'm still dealing with it.
Yeah.
I'm in therapy.
Cool.
I recently started taking antidepressants. I did not want to take them.
Yeah.
I'm very against them. There's but I something had to change. I'm still having these stupid outbursts of anger, even though it's not as bad and not directed towards people now it's more like I go and instead of putting my fist through a wall, I'll punch a box.
Yeah.
Which is still ridiculous and childish. And it's childish and it's ridiculous. And again, I don't like that part of myself. So I've definitely turned that part of myself. I have to accept that is in me, but I also can reject that. And in my mind, I'm basically trying to carve new pathways in my brain that sort of rejects that behavior and sort of changes the perspective on how my mind processes that anger, which is basically me saying that I meditate and I try to say, I tried meditation, lots of marijuana, that helps as well. Actually, I kind of calmed down on marijuana, but it helps. It's a tool. So I shouldn't say I'm sober because that's rude. I'm not I don't drink alcohol or do hard drugs.
Yeah.
And so there you go.
Cool. Have you thought about obviously you're in therapy, and you do your form of meditation and that. Obviously I used to get a lot of anger stuff side as well back in the day, and what I recognized was that it was actually not communicating enough.
Yeah.
I was actually not voicing everything that I was feeling. So if I was feeling, why is my wife not putting the dishes in the dishwasher, instead of holding it in, I actually tell her now, and I ask her and I communicate it. And she knows I'm not attacking her on it. Whereas before we would have this thing where it felt like we were attacking each other. Like she'd go, "Oh, Chris, how come you're not, I really would appreciate if you put the dishes away instead of putting them on the counter." And I used to lose my shit because I used to think that she was attacking me for fucking putting it. And in turn, I'm now it's shifting that decision, because I'm the same way. When I decide on something, it's go.
Right.
You take that decision and you go, oh, no, she's not attacking me. That's just a story that I put on my head because of my past stuff with my parents, with my work, with whatever it is. Yeah. And really, she's just going, that's what she is feeling that she needs me to do so that she feels like it's less of a burden onto her. Okay, cool. Sweet. I can do that. And then you just start. And so in turn, by communicating, you actually don't bout up all that anger, and then you don't have those snappiness. Yeah. Might be something to think about, just because of that, just from my experience and hearing from yours. But it's awesome to hear that you're putting things in place. You're trying new things and creating new pathways for yourself. and working on you, because most people don't do it and they stay in that state of burnout, don't they?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They just get in the momentum of life, and they just stay on that trajectory, and they just keep yelling at their wife for not putting dishes in the sink, and they get mad at people for cutting them off on the road, and they're screaming and hollering all the way to work, and then they start their day off in an insane rage, and then they're at work rage. Like I heard you say, and I was just like, yeah, cumulative. It just builds and builds and builds. And then before you know it, this person is the psycho in the middle of the street screaming, to some imaginary God or whatever is in his head, because they've reached the point of no return, or at least in that moment, they've gone over the edge, and that was it. And that, I can see myself going there, like I can see it happen. It's happened before, in the form of drugs and stuff. So, oh God. And so, it can happen again. It's some kind of psychopathy, like it's something that you got to get a grip on, and you really have to work at. And like you were saying, you have to sort of communicate these things, because me and my wife had that same thing. We still have a little bit, where we kind of get it, where we're thinking we're attacking each other, but it's really just like, can you like go fold the laundry or something,
Yeah.
like, can you help out a little bit, and that's okay. And even today, like today, I started getting upset because my wife wanted to just go to Whole Foods and get some essentials, and I had some work to do, and I'm just like, why is this person bothering me right now? But then when you when you stop for 1 second and sit back and be like, you've been working all day, you've said about 3 words to your entire family, all morning. um she just wants to hang out. Yeah, she could go by herself. She could take the kid and they could go and have themselves a fun little time, but she wants to go, everybody to go. And so I had to stop and be like, she just wants to hang out. We
Yep.
haven't done anything today. That's okay. And it's okay to take a break from work. It's okay to step away for
It's
a
good
second.
to. It's good to take a break, because you come back and become even more productive.
Yeah. And like that's like I said, I've had several burnouts in my life, and it's always in these times of transition that it seems like that the burnout really comes hard for me. And so yeah, this whole pandemic thing was a whole nother situation, and trying to figure that out. And then your this weird dynamic now with your family, who you're sort of trapped in with now, and you're still dealing with your crap, and I'm dealing with my own crap, and she's dealing with her crap, and we have to deal with our family crap. And so it was a whole new dynamic we sort of had to figure out. And like we had to figure out a whole new way of surviving on
Mm.
earth. So that
Yeah.
was,
So what's the pandemic like? What have you learned from the pandemic with yourself?
well, I learned that I like not leaving my house even more so. I really don't have a problem with this. Um, I love getting outside. I love nature. The thing I miss most about San Diego is the fact that I could go on hikes. I could go to the beach. I could go swimming. I like to work out, like all the gyms shut down. That's just, working out is a part of who I am now, like I've gained and lost 100 pounds a few times in my life. So like, and right now I'm like chubby right now. Like I am like, I'm so grossed out by what I am right now. But I also have a perspective that, like, we're in lockdown, and it's winter, and it's Ohio, and like there's a lot of different factors that factor in excuses for getting fat. But it's still, last year was a crazy year.
Yeah.
So what I learned the most about this is what I've learned several times in my life, because I've gotten burned out at jobs where I self-sabotage and end up getting fired, and then that prods me into finding a new way, that's just how, like, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm a hustler. Like, I'm used to starting over. I'm used to starting new projects. I'm used to sort of figuring out different paths to make money. And so this pandemic was like, well, our jobs are gone. what do we do now?
Mm.
And we started seeing in those first days that people were making money off of Facebook, and they were doing, like, our friends, our musician friends, were streaming online, playing their sets, and for a few weeks they were able to pay their rent. And we knew about Twitch um, for years now, but we never had the chance to sort of get into it. And we were like, well, you know what? Here's our opportunity. We started hanging out on Twitch, and we started to understand what Twitch was, and how, when what they're trying to do is build communities and not just like a social media platform where you just,
Yeah.
argue with your uncle about politics. It's like, it's a place where people come together, and people really care about who's streaming, and people really care about the community, and they really care about, what goes on, and traditions are made, and
Yeah.
it's really, really cool. Like, I have real friends who I've never met in real life at all. Some of them I only know as a screen name. I've never seen their face, but I am emotionally invested in these people. Like, these are my friends, and I know them as Fluffy Puppy, not 419. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, Fongalicious, like,
Oh,
I love Fongalicious. I don't know her personally, other than what she comes on stream with, but it's like, you really do build this community. So what it taught me was that uh, we're gonna be okay, because we know, because we're grinders, we're hustlers,
yeah.
and we know, which sounds bad, hustling, that has a negative connotation to it, but we know how to start over, we know how to get at it, we know how to do it again. And we started Twitch, and it's a slow start, but my wife, after streaming from, let's see, last April she started, she just this week, she has stepped away from her job as an online voice teacher,
Yeah.
and now she's just twitching full time,
Oh,
and
wow.
writing and stuff. So I'm not on that level. My wife is much smarter and harder working and prettier, sings better than me, so she has a different approach to it, and it's working really well for her. She just last week, she just did this. She was on the front page of Twitch, and she had 18,000 people watching her all at once. I
Wow.
think there was like a 500,000 overall people watched her play her ukulele and talk about her vagina. So it was,
Gotcha.
it was amazing.
So tell us a little bit about what is Twitch.
Okay, yeah. I guess
For
that's,
viewers that don't know.
of course. So Twitch is this platform that was originally called Justin TV back in the like late 2000s, and it's an online streaming platform that originally started as a gamer platform. So you have like gamers like Ninja, who is this huge gamer who, I mean, if you're not in the gaming world, then you don't know who it is. And I'm not really in the gaming world. I'm just in the Twitch world, so it all kind of
So
melts
it's like a live streaming.
Exactly. So like, if you've ever seen Facebook Live where someone's
Yeah.
streaming with their guitar, or even like, if you ever seen like your favorite rock band putting on a live stream where they're playing at their arena shows,
Yeah.
it's like that, but like this. So like, if you came to my show, this layout right here is what you would see. I have like tons of different other things. Like, this is ridiculous, but hi, so
Yeah.
like that's,
Gotcha. So it kind of changes things up. It's kind of like a live streaming.
it's a live streaming platform that has expanded into podcasts, that has expanded into e-girls, that has expanded into a music platform. And I just want to say this before we move on. If anybody is missing the live music aspect to their life,
Yeah.
please go to Twitch. You don't have to come to my podcast and watch me sweat and stumble over my words. Go and check out the music category. There's some of the greatest talent on earth. Just, you can stream it right to your living room, and it's a beautiful platform. It's so cool. But
So
yeah,
yeah, so if anybody's listening, it's twitch.tv. So
Mhm.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, check that out. Obviously, Mike's on there, twitch.tv / we speak English good, for his. And so for those that aren't watching, that are just listening, we'll have that link in the bio down below, so you can kind of you can go see him. It's also WeSpeakEnglishGood.com is Mike's email, so, or sorry, website. So you can go check him out there.
Mhm.
Mike, so the next question I have for you, obviously, you're a musician. I know my uncle is an actor. I don't know if you saw, I did a podcast with him as well, Kyle Chandler.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and he, obviously his industry's been uproared with COVID and everything, being a musician, yours was uproared. But obviously no matter what, even before COVID, you still had to, as you said, hustle. You
Mhm.
got to keep pushing. You got to keep finding different things. I believe everybody's got a bit of a why in their life, or actually they're run by a driving why that normally stems from their childhood, that keeps them going through the hard times, and obviously the easy times. So, Mike, what would you say your why would be that keeps you hustling?
Um, for me, it's because the way that my mind works is that I can't just do one thing all the time. Like I can't just sit in a cubicle and do the same routine every day. I can't just work in a factory and push the button every day. I dropped out of college. Like I don't I don't I don't have a real education other than what I have taught myself in life. For me, it's kind of a survival thing, but not in just monetarily speaking. It's like a brain and mental survival thing because I get bored really quickly. I think that's probably why I play several instruments, because it's like as soon as things turn boring, I'm just like, this is the worst thing. It's like stealing my soul. Like this is eating my soul away from me, and I just can't deal with that. So I mean, like, I'm not just a musician. I'm not just a podcaster. I'm not just a streamer. I do videography, I photography. I'm building a website for somebody. I do a lot of different things, and I have my hands in a lot of different, a lot of different areas. Because for one, if you're a musician or an artist, you should be having your hands in a lot of different things, because as we saw from COVID, things dry up. Things and in
But
this industry, things dry up. So
so Mike, so you do, like, obviously as an artist and as an entertainer. Um, what is it though that, like, deep down inside that why? Like, my why is I want to create less pain in the world. That's why I started this
mm,
podcast. I want to give people tools and that to create less pain in their lives. I want to learn how to create less pain in my own life by interviewing people like yourself. But also it brings less pain for others as well. In turn, obviously more joy.
mm.
But why do you keep pushing as an entertainer through all those failures, through all those uproars, all the times that it didn't work?
Mm.
Um, and obviously it's helped with all the times it did work. But why? What's the why? What's the underlying why? Would you say that you keep pushing? Why do you keep entertaining and keep creating?
Oh, because daddy didn't give me enough attention.
Gotcha. He's
Give it
got it.
to make it simple. My father was a complicated guy, and I loved him. He's passed, but he had his own demons that he never really addressed. And he like I distinctly remember times in my life where I just wanted him to like watch me play a song, and he would, but then he would just quickly just walk away and not really give any feedback or say, hey, that's great. um like as I got older and when I moved sort of out of the house, and he took more of an interest, and it was fine. It's not like he ever disapproved of my life as a musician. Like, my parents were both very supportive, but the one thing that, my I spent a lot of time with my dad growing up, because my mom worked days or second shifts. Um, and so when we got home from school, me and my sister were alone until about 7 o'clock. And my dad would roll in, and he was tired and angry because he hated his job. He hated his boss. He's mad, and like, he was okay, but then he would just be mad sometimes. And he was a depressive person, and he had his own shit to deal with. And I don't blame him, but the short answer is daddy didn't give me enough attention.
Okay,
So
cool. So that's where it stems from. But why do it for other
yeah.
people? Why create? Why keep doing all this creation for other people?
Well, I mean, like yourself, I do like to make people laugh. That was one thing. My dad he had a good sense of humor.
Mm.
And so that was one thing that I did pick up from him. And he liked to put on little shows for people, like he was a salesman. So he was very much when we went out to places, he was known all over town in all the restaurants and stuff. And I still, like, even like a couple weeks ago, I was at a donut shop picking up donuts, and they were like, "Oh, you're Willie's son. Oh, I miss Willie, blah, 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 blah." So for me, it was just something like I saw my dad entertain people, and I just thought that was really cool. And I've been, performing since I was 4 or 5, on stage and stuff. So it's just something I do. I think I love how Bukowski puts it, because he calls artistry, his writing is a sickness. It's kind of like a mental disease because it's something that you're just doing over and over and over again. So it's kind of it's kind of a mental disease,
Yeah.
and that has a positive outcome. And I like making people laugh. I like making people happy. I genuinely, I'm a people pleaser.
Mm.
When I like that. I like to look out in a crowd when the band's really cooking, and I love to see just a crowd of people just dancing and just losing themselves in music. That's one of my favorite things to do, is just watch people dance and to the music that I'm playing, because it's just the vibrations, like literal vibrations that we're pushing out, are affecting these people physically in an amazing way. So to
They like
make
to
people,
create. You like to create happiness in others.
yeah, exactly.
Do you
Yeah.
create happiness in yourself?
I'm starting to.
Mm.
It's I do. I mean, I get a lot of satisfaction off the work that I do. Like this, I love what I do. I love putting together podcasts. I mean, right now I'm starting to get sponsorships for my podcast. My Twitch is starting to grow. I have I looked at my subscription count. Twitch is a subscription based model. So like if people subscribe to your channel, they pay $5.
Yeah.
Twitch takes their little piece. And then there's also these things called bits, which is like cheering and like tipping people.
Yeah.
So I have 89 subscribers. That's 89 people who chose to spend $5 on me every month. And that's growing.
Yeah.
And so that's insane to me. And by the way, that's small potatoes comparatively to the e-girls who are making like $20,000 to $100,000 a month on Twitch just in a bikini. And that's it. They're not even showing their any areola or anything. It's just, hey guys, it's the whole thing. So, but to me, I love, like that's amazing to me. It's amazing that people are paying me money so that I can talk about their product. It's amazing that people write me emails, because the last conversation I had helped them with their own mental health, and help, because I have a big emphasis on mental health in my show, and it's been like that for years. And the great thing about Twitch is that it's just full of people with mental health issues, and everybody wants to talk about it. So it was a perfect fit for me. Of course, I also like to talk about like politics and stuff. And Twitch is a very social media Silicon Valley company, and there's a lot of stuff that they restrict you on saying, and that bothers me. So not that I want to say like the N word or anything like that, but like we're not allowed to say the word simp. Do you know what a simp
I
is?
don't even know what simp is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Simp is someone who is voluntarily giving their money or goods or services to somebody in hopes of a relationship or even sex. So you have a bunch of people. So simping, it's a urban term. I remember my wife used to say it back when we first started dating. She's like, "Man, I'm simping on you." And I didn't know what it was either, but now it's turned into like a derogatory term towards these like lonely dudes who are paying all these money to these e-girls on Twitch. And now you can't call them simps, because and I get it from a business perspective. You're messing with the bottom line, right? Like simps are what makes Twitch go down. so yeah, I get it, but it's
yeah. So Mike, so obviously, that whole, making yourself happy is part of your why, as well as making other people happy. So it's just something to think about. And obviously we bring this up with everybody that we talk to, just because it's real important to obviously apply our own why to ourselves, because not many people do. So last question I kind of have for you, Mike, is what would be the number one piece of advice when it comes to burnout that you would give to musicians to prevent or overcome burnout?
There's like some real, well, for me, there's like a whole list. There's just
What
a
would be the
whole,
number one? No, the number one piece of advice. If you could just
um, turn your fucking phone off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Just turn it off. Like turn it off, or at least step away from social media. The biggest thing that I'm learning in these last few months, especially as the pandemic and at the beginning of the pandemic, I really threw myself into building out my podcast, and that, like, I burnt out from that real fast, because I was just waking up at 3 a.m. working until, midnight, and ignoring everybody, ignoring the world around me that's burning. So it was, I had to get past that. So I'm trying to get past this, like, really, this huge urge to just keep working, because there's nothing else to do. There's literally nothing else to do but work out or work. Like, I'm not going to the store. I'm not hanging out. The gym just opened up, so I've been going there once a week, but that's but the biggest thing I would say is to turn off, at least from the social network, because that has been my biggest impedance on getting work done. And when you're someone who likes to work, and someone who likes their own work, and you're sitting there constantly being distracted, and by the time, like, you could start work at 8, and by the time noon comes, you've gotten nothing done, and all you've done is, like, gotten an argument with some guy on Facebook or something, like and that feeling of not accomplishing anything and not getting anything done, for someone who likes to work, that drives them nuts. I mean, like, could you imagine you spent a whole morning and you got nothing done? Like, I mean, imagine that. It's awful. It's an awful thing to think about. And that's what I was sort of doing for a long time, like, especially like at the end of last year, especially with all the political stuff happening here in the States. I was just, and I had to turn it on. D&D, put your D&D on, it's like D&D, and turning off notifications from, like, Messenger, even my text. I turned off my notifications for my text, my emails. I turned off all my notifications.
Unplug.
I mean,
Unplug. You heard it from
unplug and
Mike.
focus.
Unplug from social media so you can focus.
Yeah,
All
because
right, cool.
you don't get
Cool,
nothing
Mike.
done.
So obviously, we've kind of gone over it, but if people want to get in touch with you, obviously it's your Twitch. So twitch.tv/WeSpeakEnglishGood, and then also the website, WeSpeakEnglishGood.com. And all those links will be down in the podcast down below, or in the link down below the podcast. And you can also see it if you're watching us on YouTube. You can see it on his screen with that lovely diamond coming flying through. You can see it. Awesome, guys. Mike, any last words that you'd like to say to viewers or listeners?
Yeah, keep your head to the sky. Things get better. Things will get better. Just keep your head to the sky.
That's awesome. Good words. Keep your head to the sky. That's very good. Awesome. So as you know, this is Fight the Burnout. We interview people from all walks of life, get all sorts of experiences, but we also want to help you create less pain in your life, and help you prevent or overcome, if you're already in burnout, overcome it, or help you prevent actually staying in it, or even getting into it in a deep level. We all go through different stages, but we don't want to get into that deep level of burnout. So if you are looking for any kind of assistance, just send us an email at fighttheburnouttpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to give you some more tips, some more tricks. But till next time, make sure you hit the like, the subscribe, and also send us a comment, a review, and let us know what you think of our episodes, and if there's anybody else that you want us to interview. So until next time, remember our motto is train hard, test easy. That's both physically and mentally, because if we aren't training hard, when we do get tested, it becomes a lot harder to get out of that hole. So until next time, we love you all, and we will talk to you again soon.